First, free your mind. Do your duty. Do your practice of faith. Do your practice of a path. Faith is one, your path, whether it's Ashtanga or any of them. It's yoga. Do your meditation. Allow things to manifest. When I'm pursuing something very aggressively, with earnest, and I see that it's not working, I see that it's not taking the time, it's not happening within the time frame that I have in mind, I have come to the conclusion that I am trying my best, it's not happening yet. It will happen. So let me not get upset by putting these deadlines that I have in mind, which only makes me more upset. And unnatural, that the reason why I'm using the term is one where there is still a lot of negative vibration or negative energy left as part of that. So the impact that it can have on somebody who is in the vicinity is much higher.
Some sort of experience which I would like to share. When about why did there has been some experiences where I also felt a presence. So in our family, we as our family, we believe Nageshwar Mahadev, right? There is a small temple outside my city, about 20 kilometers, and it's a temple in a village of that Mahadev. Shivling is there, and now the villagers provide the service to the temple, and we have developed it, the whole family. When I was small, I used to ask my grandfather that why do we go there, and it's very far. We could have a temple near our house. So he shared me a story which I would like to share to you. So he told me that maybe 4 or 5 generations ago, maybe my grandfather used to have this ghee business. So he used to go out of my city and sell the ghee. Once he was going on that highway road, and some robbers came behind him. So he just ran into that village, and there he saw a very small temple, like just a 1 by 1 temple and a shivling in it. So he was so frightened, he just went inside that and he just sat behind the shivling and just told, just save me, because if this ghee is stolen, my whole family will not be able to eat for the whole week. And so it would be happen that the robbers came and they were just standing right ahead of him, and they weren't able to see him. Like my grandfather was able to see them, but the robbers didn't see him. So what happened, he also didn't. From that day to till now, that temple is been like worshipped by my whole generation, my whole lineage, right? So the question here arises is that why does this sort of incidents, why does this sort of miracles happen to only chosen ones, right? Maybe someone didn't have it. Now it's not their fault. So do we assume that maybe the time for them to realize is a bit later, and for me it is a bit earlier? So isn't it unfair, or what is the psychology?
There is nothing fair or unfair. It is when the time is right is when things will happen. Let's be very clear. Firstly, miracles happen for 2-3 reasons. One is you have the faith, and because of the faith, a miracle happens to bring you to a point of absolute faith, like what happened in your grandfather's situation, where a miracle happens to help you. You so much believed in it that the truth reveals itself. How can somebody see one person and that other person cannot see them? There is a divine presence that has prevented it, right? Prevented the other person or the robber from seeing them. Second, a miracle happens to make a non-believer a believer. the example that I gave you of Yogi Ram Surat. The third, the miracle happens to spur you. You are on the search, and that spark is ignited to spur you so much further. Right? Narendra Nath was on a path. Something happened within his life when he became Vivekananda. We know a part of that. But if you understand the whole experience of how he went from Narendra Nath to Vivekananda and did the impact that he did, he lived to 49. I mean, 15 years, I think he did more for meditation. He was the one, in my view, who brought yoga meditation to the West in the scale that it is today. He did what people are trying to do since then for hundreds of years. It's not going to happen that quickly. With no internet, no phones, just speeches that energize millions, right? So that is one other reason why a miracle happens. There is no fair, unfair. There is no, this is happening to him, it's not happening to me, should I have got this? When you go on that path, you'll realize that these are all acronyms or pronouns or adjectives that we use. They all don't matter in that sequence of things. The way to look at it is that everything is destined to a point. You have to execute towards your destiny. And you can and will fulfill your destiny, which eventually is the liberation. But your destiny in this lifetime is to be able to achieve something.
Mm.
And you will achieve it if you execute. That point of realization of that purpose of why I am, why did it take me 47 years to figure out that I needed yoga? First 6 months or 8 months I kept. I wish I could have done this at 30. I wish I could have done this at 25. No, that's not the time. The cycle is not there yet. So everything is predetermined up to a point because of that cycle. To extend your question, I'll add another question. I'll give you an incident which will make you feel a little more energized. My father was or is a trustee of a major, very large Hanuman temple. Okay, there was a legal dispute going on about that temple, where the management of that temple was being taken over by another institution and away from the trustees, these trustees. So the case was in court, it went to high court, it was being fought, etc. I am at home, I am doing puja, I am in front of Lord Ram, because we have a large picture of Lord Ram. I am doing my puja and I hear the sound of a monkey. This is not somebody else's story, this is my true story which I have seen. I hear the sound of a monkey. So I call my parents and say, I heard a monkey. My parents obviously tell me, we've lived in this house for 50 years. It's a residential neighborhood, individual houses. There are no monkeys here. We've lived here for 50 years. 5 minutes later, there are some 8-9 monkeys. Okay? My driver and my staff take a video of those monkeys. So we have it on video. They don't go to anybody else's house. Nobody else, we call the neighbors, nobody else has seen them. They've come into our house. We don't know how they've come in. We don't know how they've disappeared. They were roaming around in the garden, climbing the trees, doing all of what they do. 15 minutes later, my father gets a call saying the court has adjudicated the case, Hanuman temple case, in your favor. So obviously they are immediately get the car, let's go see Hanuman. How do you explain this?
Mm.
It is just a monkey or a set of monkeys come to a house where they have not seen these animals ever. And then 15 minutes later, a case involving Lord Hanuman is adjudicated in favor of us. How do you explain this? How do you literally explain this? So there are thousands of such experiences happening. We have to keep our eyes and ears open, and we have to have the faith and the belief. Just like your grandfather or many generations ago experienced it, there are people who experience this daily, regularly. That is the point of understanding that you are part of a much bigger cosmic existence.
Mm.
So don't take yourself way too seriously, and don't take yourself way too lightly either. Just stay on the path. I will do what I do. I will do my duty. I will go do my duties towards God, my faith, my meditation. I will continue doing them. And as I do them, I am also generally going inward.
Mm.
That's the whole point. And that's how it happens.
What I feel is that everything which would happen maybe has to be thought before, and there has to be something like even if you consider this podcast going on, right? How many things would have been fallen into the right place, right?
For
So
this to happen.
for someone to contact you to come to VIT,
Yeah.
to me being there, to getting your mail ID, to getting the first shoot cancelled, and after the 3 months we reschedule it again during Diwali,
Correct.
and then again to coming over here and doing this, right? I think there is a huge reason or a bigger power which is guiding something, and some stories or some things which have to be put out will be put out, is what I feel.
Everything that has a place and a time will be revealed. The truth will always be revealed. That's why when I am pursuing something nowadays, I wish I had this little bit of discriminatory knowledge a few years ago. When I'm pursuing something very aggressively, with earnest, and I see that it's not working, I see that it's not taking the time, it's not happening within the time frame that I have in mind. I want to do certain things. I have come to the conclusion that I am trying my best, it's not happening yet. It will happen. So let me not get upset by putting these deadlines that I have in mind, which only makes me more upset.
Mm.
We were to buy a home in a particular area which we really liked. For some reason, there was one issue and another. When initially the price was an issue, initially something else was an issue that kept going back and forth. And I said, there's something that is just preventing us. And then we find out that there was an unnatural death in that house many years ago. So there are some negative vibes, and when we did an assessment that this was not a natural death, there was some bad event that has happened, and that has not been, the effect of that has not been removed, as they call it. So we would have assumed some of that. So I was more thankful that it did not happen. But initially I was like, everything is fine, price is agreed now, paperwork, because we would try to meet to review a document, and that person would not be available, X would be sick, Y would be traveling, something or the other would keep coming back and forth. So I had already made up my mind saying, Kab hona hai, it's fine. Then the truth reveals itself at some point. So if it has not happened to you, there is a reason that it has not happened. That doesn't mean that you just give up every time something doesn't. So you are pursuing with earnest on everything that you want. But don't attach yourself to that result so deeply. It's easier said than done. And Krishna says, do your duty, don't expect the fruits of that. Just do your duty. Everything will happen. Much easier said than done. But at least have the belief that it is not happening now because of some reason, or it's not going to happen to you because of some reason which you don't know today. You will be much more thankful that it has not happened at some other point.
Do you agree that there has been some conflict of questions going on in my mind? We say in one point of view that everything is planned, right? Since the time we are born, our death is also coming near. And in the another point of view, we also consider something called as unnatural death, which we told, right? That the vibrations are still there. The soul may not be, willing to depart, because then why is there a conflict? If I was meant to be dead by this date, what is an unnatural death then? Right?
An unnatural death, the reason why I'm using the term is one where there is still a lot of negative vibration or negative energy left as part of that. So the impact that it can have on somebody who is in the vicinity is much higher. Okay. We hear of this in India. We say this a lot. Be careful who you share your success with. Why?
Because I think that success is something which people internally envy. It feels jealous and
Where do they call it? The kala, right? The black eye. So not everyone may be praising you. Some may be plotting against you. That is negative energy. So, as much as possible, limit yourself to positive outcomes and positive energy. We don't have to go searching for negative energy, because that cycle is ongoing. If you are exposed to that, your goal is to move away from that. If you have the ability to fix it, because in some cases it may be something within your own family that you will have to do what I call a parikrama, right? There is certain things, so you do that to come out of it. So those are required. But why would you go and assume something without being able to understand the full scope of that? Right? There are people who change their names and experience disaster, who change their names and experience positivity, who've moved into a new home and experienced disaster. Why do you think Vastu is such a huge science in India? Because when somebody's built a house, there are forces of nature within that. Why do we spend so much of time trying to figure out south facing, east facing, north facing? This is not just because I want to face the sun. There are certain magnetic forces which we just talked about. We want to align as much as possible positively. And if you feel that you've gotten some negative energy as a result, do what you can to eradicate that, or distance yourself, or cleanse yourself from that. So it's not unfair or it is predetermined, etc. There are multiple. Just imagine you are one Purusha, you're going through one cycle, you're vibrating. There are thousands and thousands and thousands, billions and billions. Why is someone born as a cockroach or a tiger or a lion, or why not as a human being? We only believe that humans are the only species on the planet which are worth talking about. We have such a limited view. Even a plant has a life, right? Why was it a plant? So you take that into existence, just imagine billions and billions and trillions of revolving, rotating, magnetic cycles are going on. In the midst of all of that, there are many that are not good either. So why go search for them? Why go attach yourself to them? Or if you've been pulled into one, see how you can come out of them. So it is predetermined, but also please understand that you have to be smart about it. You cannot just say it is predetermined that I will be on a train tonight. So even if I don't do anything, I will be on the train. No, you will still have to catch your ride to the train station, right? So our programmed minds are taught to think this way. We have to remove the clutches of that thinking. So I've asked a lot of these questions saying if it's predetermined that I'll come to yoga, it's going to happen. If it's predetermined that I'm going to be a successful CEO or a tennis player, it'll happen on its own. No, it won't. You still have to put the work. You still have to go through the journey. So we tend to take the abstract and immediately bring the point of reference. Why not this? Because that's how our minds are programmed to think. That pattern of thinking itself has to change. That mapping has to change for you and for anyone else to experience this at a much different level.
In between we talked about a practice which actually is going on in India, and we also believe into it that the things which are done previously in our lineage, and if something called as you mentioned, that maybe your grandfather didn't like this and there's some dosha. Didn't my grandfather move on to his next life?
Yeah.
Then why would he be still, like, if I am sitting here, right? In my previous life, I would be someone's grandfather.
Correct.
How would I know I am still upset with him?
You don't need to know if you're still upset with somebody, but that particular life has had a sense of regret about something, which passes on, which adds to that karmic perspective. See, people are coming together, lives are forming, and then they go on to the next life. But that residue also is the reason why you are born today. If that residue has negativity, it has to be taken out.
So then, does it mean that, let's again take my example. If I had something which I didn't like about my previous life, right, it won't affect me, or it would just affect them?
No, if you had something about your previous life that you didn't like, you first have to know it.
What's the way of knowing it?
You won't know it till you are open to realizing it. And by the time you realize it, or if you realize it, you may already have moved on to something else. So we tend to look at all of these as binary. If I know this, then I should do this. If I do this, the questions that are asked will only get answered with more and more questions. So first, as I say, just free your mind. Do your duty. Do your practice of faith. Do your practice of a path. Faith is one, your path, whether it's Ashtanga or any of that. It's yoga. Do your meditation. Allow things to manifest. Your manifestation is happening, but allow that manifestation to happen. And you will get answers as you go along and along. Don't ask. It's like the classic example of somebody who's looking at a physics text in the 7th standard and asking questions on Higgs boson. Get to 7th standard, second month, Just start the journey. If it is meant that you will learn it by 11th, you will learn it. If it is meant that you will never learn it, you will never learn it. But start the journey. Keep track of your questions. One thing I do, which I find interesting, is all my questions to my mentor are written down because I write the questions and when he gives me answers, I write them down. I just go back and look at the quantum and the quality of questions from 6 months back. They are from almost like I was in a different planet. Why should I do the practice? Why can't I do it once? Why should I do it thrice? Why can't I? You can do it, you cannot do it. It's up to you. Then you're like, okay, I'm doing it. I see this benefit on day 3, but nothing, I don't see anything for a while. Okay. So the answer is just okay. So why, if I don't see a benefit, should I not do it? Yes. So then you start realizing that the answers are embedded. You cannot just walk into a room, throw a barrage of questions about something as cosmic and as huge as our existence and get an answer within the first 3 seconds and walk back and come back with another question. Some of these questions require lifelong searches, many life searches.
I feel that the sudden transition of many people, as we are seeing in the past few years, we saw that Virat Kohli has become this famous reference point to this topic. That he was someone who also said it in his interviews that मैं क्या पूजा पाठ वाले लगता हूँ, and then to going to a Mahakaleshwar and actually believing now in God has influenced many people to start believing suddenly, right, as you also mentioned in earlier. So do you feel that there's some force guiding right now which has spurred this, that many people would start exploring this again, the things which were buried down for some years?
I don't think it was ever buried down. I don't think India ever stopped believing. It's just that people are speaking more about it. India or our country never stopped believing in a certain way of life that was held, the faith-based way of life. It's just that people are vocal about it. People are able to speak about it and also explain why they are doing it. Some of the most famous atheists, and I don't want to call them out here, are some of the most God-fearing people. They are atheists publicly, but privately they do every single puja of every single deity. Right? Today, you don't need to be that. If you are a certain way, be that way. This is also India maturing. This is also India coming out of that or unshackling of how people view us through a lens of Western civilization. We don't need to be viewed by anybody in any lens. We are bigger, stronger, and more deeper in terms of spirituality, that we will view ourselves in our own way. Your opinions are not discounted, but we don't need to view ourselves from your perspective anymore. That shift has happened. And it is, like I said, as civilizations go through that shift, the Roman Empire was technically unbeatable. Alexander before Alexander, and when Alexander was at his prime or peak, nobody could come close. Same way with the next civilization. So I think it is time, or it is that India rising is real. So people are a lot more proud, people are a lot more vocal, People are happy to speak about it and happy to speak about experiences. But I don't think that juggernaut ever stopped. It's just that it is making a little bit of extra. Zyada dum hai bas.
Amplitude of propagation might have increased.
That's it. But all of this was always there. A lot of public personalities would have thought 3 times about speaking about God 2, 3, 5 years ago. That doesn't mean that they suddenly became a huge follower. They were not doing it publicly. Today they are happy to do it publicly because they are also proud of that lineage, proud of what they are, and proud of why they do that. It is evolution. Civilization of India is going through that evolution, and it is beautiful to see. The number of people who are signing up for yoga retreats, the number of people who are going to the hills to just speak to potentially a realized person and say, why are you sitting here? What have you found by sitting here for 50 years? Some are doing it for social media likes, but many are doing it because they actually want to know the answer. And they're spending quality time to understand this journey. It's a clear transformation that we're going through, and it is absolutely beautiful to see. To me, it is just the next real step of where India can go.
I hope that we actually do, this search in India becomes more profound and people do it more. So on that note, we'll end this episode. I think this was the most candid episode of this series till now. But let's look forward to more candid conversations ahead. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.